Hey peeps, welcome back. I just wanted to do a little supplementary video to our course covering some more creative warping techniques. So in previous lessons, we've covered session view, arrangement view, some tips on how to arrange a track, automation envelopes, both inside clips and in arrangement view, using audio within a sampler, as well as within a drum rack, drawing MIDI notes and creating MIDI patterns for different instruments, and in our last lesson, warping, both short loops and long samples. So in this video, I just want to show you some different ways that we can use some of the warp modes to create something new from what we already have. So in this Ableton live set, I've just got some sounds that I've created in another project, and I'll just give you a quick listen to these. So that's just a drum and bass beat that I've made using the collision instrument that comes with Ableton Live Suite. And this one over here that I've labeled lead. That's actually a recording of one of my synthesizers that I've processed slightly using a simpler and some audio effects. And then this bass here is also from one of my synthesizers that I've heavily processed using some of my own Max for Live devices. And now if I play them all together. So we're going to take these sounds and we're going to process them in different ways using different warp modes to create something new. And then at the end, we'll put all these techniques together into some sort of arrangement, and we should have something very different to what we've started with. So first off, I'm just going to make sure that I'm not in automation mode. I can do that by clicking this little button here above the track names in arrangement view. So this is out of automation mode. And that just makes editing clips a little bit easier, as that's primarily what we'll be doing in this video. So rather than mess about with my original clip, I'm just going to hold Alt, click and drag, and this is going to make a copy of that audio clip wherever I drag it to. So this first technique, normally with a bass you would use something like tones mode, as that's good for monophonic instruments. But here we're going to use the beats mode to create something rhythmic out of a sustained note. So I'm just going to solo this bass and play it. Cool. So because we haven't changed the pitch or the tempo, it's all sounding pretty normal, even though it's in beats mode. So you can't hear any of those warping artifacts. But if we change this preserve mode to one of the musical timings, such as 16th notes, and then adjust the playback mode to play stop mode, as well as changing the volume envelope, we should get some sort of rhythmic variation of our original sound. So let's have a listen to that. And I could choose different musical timings, such as eighth notes or quarter notes. And using multiple clips with different timings and different volume envelope settings, we could almost create a kind of build-up. So let's do that a little bit later on. But that's basically taking our sustained note and turning it into something rhythmic. Now I'm probably just going to loop this section here. So I'm just going to highlight that time in our clip editor and press Command L. So now I'm just looping this section of the clip. Cool. I'm just going to trim that clip down and drag another copy of the original clip over, and we'll try a different technique. So this time round, let's have a look at the texture warp mode. So texture mode can be used for polyphonic instruments, but at times it can mess with the pitch a little bit because of this flux parameter. Flux is basically randomization of the grain size, and with higher amounts, it can start to mess with the pitch a little bit. But generally, a small amount makes things sound a little bit more natural. But with what we're doing, we're trying to push things to the extreme. So let's turn flux all the way down. This is going to create no randomization on the grain size. Then what we're going to do is mess about with the grain size. But before we do that, let's just have a listen to this. So it still sounds the same because we haven't changed the pitch or the timing. But we can quickly do that by just pressing this ×2 button, and that will stretch this audio clip out and make it double the length. So now you can see the segment BPM has gone up to 350. Therefore, it's had to stretch it out twice as much to get it to fit our project tempo. So now let's have a listen with this texture warp mode on. Now we can clearly hear that that's having an effect now. And when I move the grain size, have a listen to what happens. So that sounds pretty cool, and we could chop this into little pieces with different grain sizes to create a lot of variation from one sound. Now, if I turn this flux back up, it still has a similar effect, but I find that it has a little bit more of that texture that I like. And with really high settings, so you can hear that flux definitely messes with the pitch a bit, and maybe that's what you want. So that could be another parameter that you could automate. So let's come back to that one later, and I'll continue going through some different techniques with some of the other sounds in this project. So now let's have a look at this lead sound. Again, I'm just going to copy it over, holding Alt, clicking and dragging. And this time, let's try texture mode again. But let's stretch things out as far as we can. So we can do that by just hitting the multiply button a bunch of times. So once we hit it twice, it says warp marker segment limit reached. So we can sometimes get it a little bit further by manually adding a warp marker and dragging that out as far as we can. So now we've got this first note stretched out as far as we can. And that's actually done a really good job of retaining quite of the character of the original sound and just stretching it out a lot longer than what it originally was. And in this case, the flux is definitely helping that. So I'm just going to set the flux to about 50 and also the grain size to 50. And then we can use envelopes to create a new melody out of this sound. So if I go to envelopes, clip, and transposition, we can transpose the audio clip using our pencil tool to create a new melody out of this sustained note. So let's have a listen. And that's still keeping a lot of the original character, even though we're repitching it. So that's quite cool. Let's see if we can get a little bit nicer melody happening with this. And I might just pitch it down as well. So now this transposition modulation is going to automate the pitch of this particular audio clip relative to this transpose control. So we've set it to -12. Therefore, to return it to 0, I would set the transposition modulation to +12. And you'll see that this blue line on this knob will go back to 0. And if I just do this, and then back down here, you'll see that blue line move below where the current position is on this particular knob. Now, pitch down actually sounds really cool with this. So I might pitch it down a little bit further and then draw in a bit of a melody. Cool, that'll do. And I'm just going to turn pencil tool off, and I'm going to loop this section of the clip as well. So I've just selected time, and I'm just going to press Command L. Now let's have a listen. And then compared to our original audio clip, so we've changed the tone of that by pitching it down quite a bit, and we're able to stretch it out a lot and then re-pitch it to create a new melody. Now I'm just going to trim that clip down, and let's have a look at another technique. So let's see how the technique that we use from the bass with the beats warp mode sounds on this particular sound. I'll just get out of envelopes view in the clip editor, and I'm just going to stretch it out by hitting ×2 a couple of times. And then I'll switch to a play forward stop playback mode and choose a preserve timing that is musical and adjust the volume envelope. So we could even add some transposition modulation using envelopes in the clip editor to create a bit of an arpeggiator using this mode. I'm just going to switch back to the pencil tool by pressing B, and let's try some different pitches and just see how it sounds. I'm going to go a bit random with this. And I'm going to shorten that loop as well. Cool, so I've got something interesting there, and again, and quite different to our original audio clip. So I'm just going to turn off pencil mode again by pressing B and get out of the envelopes view. And let's have a look at some other sounds. Now let's grab our drums. I'm just going to copy that clip over here and solo our drum track. Now this time let's use texture mode and turn down the flux and have a listen to how it sounds by changing the grain size. So we don't hear any effect because we haven't changed the pitch or the timing. So let's transpose this up 12 semitones. So this can be a really cool effect on drums, and you could edit some clips together to create a lot of variation in your drums just by using different warp modes, stretching the audio out, and also reversing it and changing the pitch. So we'll do a bit of that in a moment when we put all these techniques together, but I just want to show you another variation of some creative warping. So over here I have some audio clips that I've prepared. This is basically the drums with the beats warp mode with preserve 16th notes on. And you can hear that I've stretched it out twice the amount. Now it sounds a little bit average, but once I layer it with this other track here, which is the same clip, but I've used beats warp mode and preserve 8th notes and pitched it up. It's also stretched out like this other clip. And I've just used a limiter to kind of bring up the quiet parts of this sound. So have a listen to this. Now that sounds pretty awesome if you ask me. Now I could also use the forwards backwards mode. But I like the forwards mode here because it gives a nice kind of synthesized sound to the drums. And if I put those two together, actually I like that mode a bit better. That's definitely a drastic change compared to our original audio. So if I just play that compared to this. So let's use that for the start of our arrangement of some of these different warping techniques.